Hello and welcome back. Slay the Spire 2 is finally here, and with it there are two brand new characters for us to explore and figure out how they work. Today I'm going to be talking about the Necrobinder. It's a character that I've got to Ascension 7. I only lost one run so far, that's when I tried Doom. We'll talk about why that is in a second. So I think I got quite a bit of knowledge to share on how to play this character. So if you're looking for a brief overview, want to figure out what to do with this character to start winning, this is a great place to start. We're going to quickly talk about unique mechanics of the character, the soul and doom mostly. Then jump into gameplay style, how you should be playing this character, what cards to look for early, like what type of deck you should be scaling towards. Then we're going to talk about an overview of builds. When I say builds typically mean what you should be doing in Acts 2 and 3 mostly. Like what is your late game plan? That's what the builds are. And then we'll end with a quick tier list over, if you just want to reference, these are good cards to take, avoid these, that'll be there. So the first mechanic to talk about is Doom. I currently think this mechanic is underpowered. But what Doom is it's a status you can apply to an enemy. So this is at the start of your turn, apply 6 Doom to a random enemy. And that status does nothing unless they have more Doom than their current HP, and then they die at the end of their turn. Also, marginally, you can apply Doom to yourself, and you die if your Doom exceeds your current HP, but mostly it's an offensive stat, and they use it a little bit to give a drawback to some of the best cards in the game. But the problem with Doom is, in most cases, it's just really bad poison. That doesn't mean that all Doom cards are bad, because there's quite a few cards that just have Doom as like an added effect, and some cards that are good, that they just use Doom as their avenue of being good. But as an archetype, it's just bad poison. And I want to showcase this more clearly with these two cards. Countdown and Noxious Fumes, they both really do the same thing. At the start of your turn, they give a status to an enemy. And these are supposed to count down towards their death. The problem is, Doom does absolutely nothing until the enemy dies, whereas poison ticks down every single turn, and it's damaging them over time. So it's synergistic with just regular damage. And the most important thing, Doom kills them at the end of their turn. So let's say there's a card that just says, enemies get infinite Doom. They would still get to attack you in that case. Whereas poison, if you poison kill them, they die at the start of their turn. So even if Doom and poison were equivalent, poison is one turn faster because they die before they get to attack. With Doom, they get to attack before they die. And that's very relevant. But I just wanted to do the math on these two cards to highlight why Doom sucks. So this is a graph of how many turns it would take to kill a 200 HP enemy with these two relative cards. Noxious Fumes, at the start of your turn, apply 2 poison to all enemies. So turn 1, they get 2 poison. They take 2 damage, they go to 1 poison. Turn 2, they go to 3 poison. They take 2 damage, they go to 2 poison. So you end up getting 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7. That's how much damage they're taking, and it takes 19 turns of that to do 200 damage to the enemy. Conversely, Countdown does absolutely nothing until they hit 200 HP. And I believe it's 34 is 200 divided by 6. But they die the turn after that happens. So it's really turn 35 that Countdown can kill a 200 HP enemy. But it's even worse because Noxious Fumes applies to all enemies and Countdown applies to a random enemy. So not only is Countdown 16 turns slower than Noxious Fumes at killing this enemy, but it can only do this against one enemy. And so if there's multiple enemies, it just gets worse. So this general trend applies to a lot of the Doom scaling cards. Time's Up, this card's hilarious to me. This is 2 energy, deal damage equal to the enemy's Doom exhaust. Feels like a cool payoff, but this just turns Doom into poison for 1 turn. Because let's say they have 20 Doom, you play Time's Up, you do 20 damage to them, and then let's say they have 40 health, right? Dream scenario, enemy has 20 health, Time's Up for 20 damage, then they go down below their life total, so they die from Doom at the end of their turn. That's the same as if they just had technically 21 poison, because 21 poison would hit them on their turn, and then they would get to attack you, and then you would get a turn, and they would die before their next turn. Whereas in this case, they take 20 damage, they still get to attack you and they die at the end of your turn. So like, this card specifically highlights the problem with Doom as like a scaling archetype, because you're spending 2 energy and a whole card just to turn Doom into poison for 1 turn. Poison basically gets this for free every single turn. Anyway, okay, enough about Doom. We'll talk more about what you can do with Doom later in the video, but I think the mechanic needs a rebalance. Alright, now we get to talk about the fun stuff. Soul is so cool. I love this mechanic so much. It's a card, a token that cards can create that costs 0, draws 2 cards, exhausts. Perfect. This is a beautiful mechanic. So something like Grave Warden, gain 8 block, add a soul into your draw pile, and then later on you draw the soul, and you can cast it to draw 2 cards and exhaust. If you think about it, I know soul says draw 2 cards, but it's really plus 1 card because you have to draw the soul itself. So if you think you have a hand of cards, or just looking at this example, you play the soul, 1 card turns into 2 cards. And this 1 card, because it's created in your deck and not in your hand, it's plus 1 card. If soul is created in your hand, then you're creating something from nothing and then drawing 2, so then it's plus 2 cards. There's 1 card that makes soul in your hand. But in general, when you read soul, you can just think plus 1 card later on. That's great. There's a couple interesting things with this. If you compare Grave Warden to Backflip, I like comparing new Slay the Spire cards to old Slay the Spire cards. Ignoring the fact that this blocks for more, Backflip draws 2 cards immediately. So Backflip is plus 2, whereas Grave Warden is only plus 1, because the soul is created in your draw pile again. So you have to draw into it, and then you get it, even though they both say draw 2. But the difference is that Backflip isn't always useful because you draw the cards immediately and you don't get to choose what you're doing with them. So like, if you backflip into a 3-cost like Murder, and you don't have enough energy to play the Murder, you're kind of limited in what you can do. And so there's situations where maybe you already want to play all of the cards in your hand, and then this card draw is sort of wasted because you were using your mana anyways. Late game, it gets a lot better, but in the mid game and early game especially, this comes up a lot. Like, say the enemy's attacking for 15, and you have to go like backflip, defend, and then you don't need the card draw. It's just kind of wasted. But with Soul, it's a lot more flexible, because if you don't need the card draw, you can just wait to play it, and you can defer that draw until whenever you want to in your deck. And so it's really nice because you can Soul into a Reap and play a 3-cost card on the same turn, but you cannot backflip into a Murder unless you have other energy stuff. So Soul is cool because it's so flexible. And I think that's the key. If you already know what you're doing for turn, just let the Soul go into your discard pile. You can draw it later, and then you basically banked that card draw for a future turn. And I think this gameplay pattern is so nice because it's a great way to mitigate variance. And that's essentially what this character is about. This character is a character that's based around mitigating variance and building engines. It's like an engine building character. But Soul, I love the mechanic. So yeah, you can just think of this like draw 1 when you need it, and that's just such a beautiful thing. The other key mechanic is the Necrobinder gets Osty, which actually isn't that mechanically rich. It kind of does 2 things. It's a form of stored block, and it ignores many debuffs. I don't know the full list yet, but like, if you decrease your strength, for example, Osty attacks full strength. I think it ignores weakness, but I'm not entirely sure. But basically, the main key for Osty is that it's a stored block, and then there's like some mechanics where Osty attacks. Functionally, they're the same as you attacking, except they ignore debuffs. But it's more of like an archetype thing than like mechanically different that Osty attacks versus you attack. There's just some cards care about it. The way I like to think about Summon is it's like block that is stored for later. So it's actually very similar, and I like the parallels with Soul. Soul is like draw 1 when you need it, and Summon 5 is like block 1 or block 5 when you need it. Because you can play Bodyguard. If they don't attack you, Osty's going to keep his health around, and then the next time they go to hit you, it'll take it away from that. So I think it's a really cool design, similar to Blur, where it's like you gain 5 block and it's not removed. A little bit different because Blur keeps all of your block there. But Bodyguard Summon, like, it just lasts until he gets hit. So you can stack a ton of block up so that you're protected if you don't have block on the right turn. It's just, there's so many cool things you can do with this character because you can, like, help yourself out down the road. Playing Bodyguard now instead of playing a defend, next turn, if they attack for like 8, Osty can take that hit. And the same with Soul. Like, if you don't need the draw, put it in your deck. Next time you can draw it when you're looking for that key block card or that key attack, and you can kill them. It's all about, like, planning ahead and getting incremental value. Yeah, and I believe the attacks ignore debuffs, but for the most part, this is basically just 0 mana 6 damage with upside. So in general, this character is really just about building this engine. If you've ever played an engine building game, it's all about, like, resources and energy. And that's kind of it. You want more card draw, and you want ways to get energy or play things for cheaper. I think Borrowed Time is probably the best card in the character because it's just, there is a drawback, apply 3 Doom to yourself, but for the most part, this is just free energy that doesn't exhaust. It's great. And the upgrade, this is like one of the best upgrades in the game because it adds 2 energy. It's great. So the goal of this character is to just get to a position where you can access whatever cards in your deck you want at any time and draw through your deck at any time. That's the goal. You do that through Soul and some energy. So that's the long-term goal. Short-term, you want to start out, you need some damage. That's true for almost every character. The damage of Osty with the base deck is not amazing. So the first thing you want to do is start scaling damage so you can kill elites. Number 2, you want some manipulation. So you can mitigate variance, you can draw the cards you need to draw at the right times. That's number 2. And then number 3, around number 2 is like kind of when you hit Act 1. And then Acts 2 and 3 is all about scaling your character. Act 2 is when you start needing block. You can get by with very little block in Act 1 if you can just, like, brute force through the elites if your damage is good enough. And you can manipulate your deck to draw, like, your 1 block card at the right time. For Act 3, you start needing to have a block solution and a damage solution, right? You're not just doing 20 damage, you're doing like 200 damage. How are you going to do 200 damage? How are you going to block for 40? So starting out with damage, these are sort of the common cards to be looking for that you can take them turn 1 and be like, all right, I can hit something pretty hard. Reap is probably my favorite because it shores up a weakness with 1 card, whereas like Defile or Reave, just 1 Reave isn't going to make that much of a difference in your total DPS. Whereas Reap, if you think about it, this is like taking 3 Reaves, but it's all in 1 card, which is kind of cool. The Retain also, good theme here, like this just makes it so you can have this when you need it. You can block when they're attacking you, you can attack when they're weak. It's really nice. These cards are nice. Reave is nice because it gives you a soul, so it kind of draws cards. Very good role player, but it doesn't do the most damage. And then Defile, 1 mana 13. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage. And the Ethereal is kind of a upside, as you'll see later. Like anything that just says Ethereal is just good. Number 1, because you could just let it leave. Like if you get to a late game situation and this is still in your deck, you can just let it exhaust and then you don't have to deal with it as you're going through like Act 5 and you don't care about 1 mana 13. But there's other synergies that care about like playing ethereal cards that are pretty cool. These are also some good common damage cards to look for. Flatten is nice as like an incentive to go into an Osty build. And this is what I was talking about, where Osty is mechanically the same as just attacking, but some cards care if Osty attacks specifically. So like Flatten is Osty does 12 damage. So you just need to be on the lookout for enablers for Flatten, which we'll talk about when I get to the Osty build later. But even just 2 mana for 12 is fine, and you have 1 Osty attack in your starting deck, so this is a totally serviceable card just to take early. And then if you can start enabling it later, it gets quite good. Fear has Ethereal, gives Vulnerable, a really good way to combine with Reap to just make this like start one-shotting enemies. Pretty good upgrade, so then it's 2 Vulnerable. This kind of serves the role of Bash from the Ironclad, but this costs 1 energy instead of 2, which is a major difference because you can go like Fear, Strike, Strike, and you get 2 strikes of 9 damage, which is great. So is fine. I'm not in love with this card, but sometimes you just need AoE. This is 1 mana, 8 damage. Again, it has Retain, so you can just play it when you need it. Love that card. Okay, and then these are like the 2 cards that you can take early that you're totally fine having into the late game because they scale phenomenally. Grave Blast, we'll talk about that first. Anyone who's played Slay the Spire 1, this is basically hologram from the defect, but the attack version. Because deal 4 damage, put a card from your discard pile into your hand. Perfect. This does exhaust. I don't know. I guess the upgraded version does not exhaust. But anyway, this just lets you get back whatever card you need in the situation. If you've played it before, it's a very, very good card early because you can, like, let's say you have Flatten, right? You could, if you enable Flatten, or even you can play Flatten, does 12 damage. It's going to be free. Then you can cast Grave Blast, get back Flatten, cast it for free. That's just like a small sample of the cool things you can do with this card. Late game, you're like really, really good payoff cards. You can double cast them. The energy cards, card draw, just get whatever you need. It's a good card. Snap is really, really good early and pretty good into the mid and late game because it gives retain to a card in your hand. So if there's like a combo you're trying to set up, like you need energy to play a big card, you can give retain to the energy and wait till you draw the big card, or give retain to the big card until you draw energy. You can give retain to block cards to make sure you have block on the turns that you need it. This is a great way to prevent those like 5 or 6 damage chip hits in the early couple acts of Slay the Spire because, you know, you didn't draw your defense. Well, if you turn 1 snap, give defend retain, it has retain for the whole fight. So if you play it, you know, the fight goes on for a while, it can still have retain later. So this card's awesome. You don't normally want more than like 2 of it. 1 is perfect. 2 is okay. 3 is too much. Grave Blast, you can have 3, especially if you don't upgrade them. They exhaust when you play it. But this card, this is such a good late game card. Oh, I love Grave Blast. And then block, you don't need a lot of block in the early turns because your deck starts with quite a bit, especially being able to summon store block on Osty. You don't need a ton. And you have all of this deck manipulation with like Grave Blast and Snap and the souls, right? You can draw into block when you need it. So really the key for the early turns is having like 1 or 2 good block cards that you can draw into reliably. And rather than taking more block cards, just take cards that draw you into your block cards. And then, you know, you could retain them so you have them when you need them, or get them back from your graveyard when you need them. And of the commons, these are my 2 favorite block cards. Defy blocks. The Weaken is awesome because if they're attacking for like, I don't know, like there's some elites that attack for like 21. It'll turn it down to like 17 or something. So you're already blocking for 4 and then it blocks for 6. It's awesome. Grave Warden's nice because it kind of draws cards, but these 2, never mad to take them early. You just don't need a ton of them. Like 2 or 3 is fine. Because, like I said, you use Snap Grave Blast Soul to find them when you need them. This card, just take it. Don't ask any questions. I think this is the best card on the character right now. Take it, upgrade it as soon as you can, because this character has a good amount of card draw with all of the souls, but energy is sort of missing. And there's a lot of cool things you can do with this, which we'll talk about later. But this card is awesome. And yeah, just a couple examples. You can Grave Blast back a borrowed time. So when this is upgraded, it gives you 2 energy. So you play this, you get +2 energy. If you Grave Blast back a borrowed time, that's a net +1 energy. So anytime later on in the run, you can Grave Blast a borrowed time just to get +1 energy. If you have, say, Grave Blast borrowed time in your graveyard, you can dredge them back, and then you can go start with dredge, get back borrowed time, play the borrowed time, play the Grave Blast you got back, get back borrowed time, and this is just how you build mana into your deck. And if you don't need energy, you could just Grave Blast back card draw, you know, or you could dredge back card draw. This is broken. This is what the character does. Do this, and it doesn't really matter like what else you do. As long as you're doing this, you'll be fine. And then if you have those basics, you need to start thinking about scaling later on. But really, the truth is, this is far more important than the scaling. As long as your deck is doing this, you could have, in theory, win with just like a couple strikes. It's going to be much harder. So this is how you make it easier on yourself to win the game. Picking an archetype to build into. There's, you know, you want to take a bunch of soul cards and then get Soulstorm that benefits of how many souls you play? Do you just want to take big chunky cards that hit for a ton of damage? Do you want a bunch of Osty attacks and go that direction? Or do you want like some ethereal payoffs? There's some cool different directions to go. So of the scaling options, I think the two most reliable that you can basically guarantee you're going to hit every game, almost, are Soul and Osty attacks. So these two, just kind of be open and aware of them existing. They're great. I love both of them. Situationally, there are ethereal card payoffs. They're quite good. The problem is there's just not that many ethereal cards. So as I was talking about before, if you happen to have some good ethereal cards in your deck, then you can start looking at these payoffs. I think this is the best one. But you can't like force an ethereal deck all the time, but it's not bad. It's just hard to get into. There's like a weird archetype around expensive stuff. It's fine. I definitely have killed people with Berry. It doesn't scale as well as the others, but sometimes, you know, Berry for, I think this upgrades to do like 70 damage or something. It's not bad. So that one's okay. And then I think Doom is just not worth going for as a scaling. I suspect this will get rebalanced because we're still in early access and maybe it'll get better. But right now, I don't think Doom is a good late game like scaling plan. That doesn't mean like the Doom mechanic is bad. It just means you can't rely on like dooming your enemies all the way. Doom can be like a supplement to your base game plan. So the Soul, I think, is kind of the most supported. There's so many different ways to support Soul. You got Soulstorm, which I love. This is just flat damage. Haunt is probably the next best one. Whenever you play a Soul, a random enemy loses 6 HP. That's a lot of damage. This scales much faster than Soulstorm does. But the nice thing about Soulstorm is if you have a way to get it back from the graveyard, like we talked about, then you can go like Soulstorm, get it back, Soulstorm, get it back. And then the damage scales quite a bit if this is at like 40 damage. That's like how you one-shot an enemy. Death March, to be honest, I've never actually seen this card or played it, but it seems okay. 8+3 for each additional card drawn. So this scales about, because every soul you play is going to draw 2 cards. So this is 6 damage per soul, whereas this is 2 damage per soul. So this scales 3 times faster, but it's only turn specific. So of these, this is the one I'm most wary of, but it can be good if you need it in a pinch. But like, it's actually kind of crazy. Haunt is just Death March, because 3 additional damage for each card drawn. Oh, you know what? This is good because it scales off of your starting hand size too, right? So this is going to be 13 minimum. So this card's just a fine damage card, but it's not going to scale as high as the other two. Devour Life is good. I would mostly take it if you can upgrade it because it becomes Summon 2. It becomes twice as good. So baseline, it's not that good. If you can upgrade it, Summon 2 every time you play a soul, you stop needing to block, basically. And you can store that block for later too. So if you can get up to like Osty to 20 health and you can block for 5, you know, that will take care of your blocking needs. So yeah, Death March is the worst out of these. These two are the best by far. I love both of these cards. It's almost to the point where I would take these before I got enablers because you can generally find soul cards. But there's a lot of relics too that help these a lot. So these are the best enablers for soul. Borrowed Time, my beloved. This card's so good. But in terms of making soul, these are the 3 to look for: Severance, Dirge, Capture Spirit. Capture Spirit upgrades to make 4 souls, which is like draw 3. Severance, it just upgrades to do more damage, so the upgrade doesn't matter, but it puts a soul into your hand. So we talked about if a soul goes into your draw pile or discard pile, that's like +1, but soul into your hand is just an immediate draw 2. So this card is 2 mana, draw 2, plus 2 deferred draws later, which is like draw 4. That's a lot of card draw on one card, and it also does damage. So don't sleep on Severance, although I tend to prefer Captured Spirit just because it's cheaper. And then the best of the bunch is Dirge. Number 1, because it's so good with Borrowed Time specifically, you can scale it to whatever situation you're in. And it also blocks for you. So like if you have Dirge for summon, and then you have Devour Life for summon, like you just don't need block cards on this character anymore. And then you're getting like 4 souls in your draw pile, drawing a bunch of cards. Dirge is awesome. Yeah, these are the two best soul creators, basically. So that's the soul build. Let's talk about Osty. Osty, I love it. Squeeze is so fun. It ends up doing like 70 damage. If you get a couple Osty attacks in your deck and a squeeze, you just start one-shotting people. Rattle is the next best thing, where Osty does 7 damage, and then it hits another time for each other time Osty's attacked this turn. So really good with like Flatten. There's like Poke, any cheap Osty attacks. Suddenly this is hitting for like 7, then 14, 21, 28. If you have the ability to put enchants on Rattle to make it do +2 damage, something like that, this can start pushing a lot of damage very quickly. Flatten also just hits hard. A 0 mana deal 12. I think it upgrades to do 16 is nice. And then Sikkim is how you block. Osty does 5 damage. Whenever Osty hits this enemy this turn, summon 2. So like Sikkim and Rattle are best friends, because if you go like if you go Sikkim, Flatten, Rattle, Sikkim will summon 2 off Flatten, and then Rattle will attack 1, 2, 3 times. So you'll get summoned 2 more times. And so you're like blocking, you're attacking, you're doing tons of damage. Like these cards together are awesome. Enough for the archetype. Squeeze almost on its own is just good enough. It does a lot of damage. But then once you take a squeeze, you take every Sikkim and Rattle you possibly can. It's possible to have too many Flattens. I don't think it's possible to have too many of these. Like they just go well together. So this is like the brawler deck. You just kill stuff really fast. Again, you just don't need block because you're killing stuff super fast, and Sikkim gives you summon to handle that. But if you do want block, you can use summon in its place. For things like Afterlife, it's kind of just 1 mana delayed block 6. Not the best card, but totally serviceable, and it exhausts. So, you know, late game you can play it once and it doesn't clog up your deck later. Fetch is probably the best Osty enabler because you can take this at any time. It's just 0 mana, deal 3 damage, draw a card. But with Osty, it's really good for starting off like Sikkim, Rattle, Flatten, Chains. It's also an attack for Squeeze to be better. So if you just have a couple fetches in your deck, every fetch in your deck makes Squeeze do 5 additional damage. So pretty good card to pick up early, regardless if you're in the archetype or not. But if you are in the archetype, it gets awesome. Spur is like one of 2 cards that care about Osty's max HP. But the upgrade makes it like 5 and 7, which effectively turns it into like 1 mana summon 12 if you have a high max HP for Osty, which can be really good. The retain makes it quite nice as well. So I quite like Spur if you have other ways to get a lot of summon, like Reanimate. This is summon 20 for 3 is on a base rate a decent block, but then the fact that it lasts later is just so cool. Okay, Ethereal is a weird one, mostly because you can't reliably hit Ethereal cards. So you'll see a lot of these payoffs and you'll have no Ethereal cards in your deck. Be like, okay. But they still can be good if you happen to get into that archetype. Of these, I think Banshee's Cry and Page Storm are the best. Banshee's Cry, you only need really 1 Ethereal card to make this worth playing. Because it's for each card played this combat. So I would take this pretty highly because oftentimes you'll have 1 Ethereal card, and then just doing 33 damage to all enemies, that's awesome. That's a really good card. If you happen to get more Ethereal cards to make this cost 2 or 0, it's broken. Especially with the stuff we talked about earlier where you can get stuff back from the discard pile. It's such a strong sequence to go 0 mana Banshee's Cry, get this back from the discard pile, 0 mana Banshee's Cry. And you only need 3 Ethereal cards played. You can have 2, play 2, get 1 back from the discard pile and replay it, and this is free. That's great. Page Storm is a little bit weirder. I would only take that if you're building more of like a Storm, like draw your deck every turn kind of deck, because it basically makes all of your Ethereal cards not take up a deck slot, which is cool. The other ones, Spirit of Ash, this is another block solve. If you have like a lot of Ethereal cards, I would take this one. And then Pull from Below, this also scales damage very quickly. You would need like 4 or 5 Ethereal cards before you want to play this, but it's not bad. The cool thing about the Ethereal Archetype is the enablers are some of the best cards the character has. So like if you just happen to see these, you just take them. Seance being remarkably strong. I would basically take this card always. So like if you happen to have a Seance and an Enfeebling Touch in your deck, you're basically in the Ethereal Archetype. And then you can take a Parse, which 1 mana draw 3 is not bad either. These are the best ones. The other ones are commons, and they're okay. I think Defy is the best, but like if you happen to have, you know, you took an early Defy and a Defile, and then you happen to see like a Banshee's Cry, just take it. Go for it. For Page Storm and Pull from Below, it's a little bit more awkward if you only have these two. But if you happen to have like all three of these, then you can start building into like a full-in Ethereal build. Then there's the big... I don't really know what to call this archetype. It's just like damage. It's not even really an archetype, but it's basically just lethality is like the enabler. The upgrade on this is very good. It makes the first attack do 75% additional damage, and it stacks with vulnerable. So this archetype is kind of just big thing, lethality, vulnerable, and suddenly your berry is doing like 130 damage. It's not bad. The best card by far for this is Eradicate. Just take this. Eradicate's amazing. Take it always. But like it scales so favorably compared to Reap, which does 27. This also retains, but it does 33. And if you have more energy, it can do 55 and more and more and more. So this is the best. These two are fine. And lethality is a good enabler, but really only if you have vulnerable because they stack multiplicatively. So if you have lethality, then you can start really taking fear highly. So you can make them vulnerable. Then we get into Doom. I talked a bit about why I think Doom is bad, but let's talk more about specifically Oblivion this time. This card is horrible, and let's just compare it to another card from the Silent. This says whenever you play a card, apply 3 Doom to the enemy. So you target something and apply 3 Doom. This is whenever you draw a card this turn, apply 3 poison to all enemies. So poison does damage immediately. Regardless, let's say you could go infinite with your deck. Oblivion, they would still get to hit you. Corrosive Wave, it insta-kills everything on the field. So this is a reliable win condition. And even if you could go infinite, this is not a reliable win condition because you need block. That being said, this you can kind of do incrementally. 20 poison is going to do 20 damage, then 19, then 18, 17. So it's like... it's just so much better than Oblivion, whereas 3 Doom, if you give them 20 Doom, the 20 Doom just sits there, and it doesn't do anything until you get them below that value. So, I just wouldn't play Oblivion. I suspect it's going to get reworked in early access, but don't touch that card. But the thing about Doom, it's not an archetype you can scale into, but there are cards that offer just some good incidental Doom value. All of these are like moderately playable cards, as long as you just think of them as like extra value. Like you think about Doom as do 13 damage next turn, it's not bad. Like Blight Strike, if you read in your mind, do 8 damage, and then do 8 damage next turn, that's kind of what this does. Which is fine. It's not the same as doing 16 damage, but it's a fine card if you're looking for damage. End of Days, apply 29 Doom to all enemies, kill enemies with at least as much Doom as HP, especially if you get it in Act 1. This can help with a lot of early game fights. But it's like, I wouldn't say this is a Doom archetype card. This is just a good like AoE multi-hit enemy control card. Scourge, this upgrades to draw 2. So if you're looking for card draw, this is kind of like draw 2, do some damage to an enemy. You know, it's hard to go wrong if you can draw 2. And then Reaper Form, I haven't tried this card. It just seems a bit expensive, but the effect is not bad, especially if you consider it with like the big spells. Suddenly Barry does 52 and gives 52 Doom. So I could see Reaper Form being a good card. I personally haven't played it. It just seems like if it costed 2, I might consider it. But it's just expensive. So that brings us just to our card tier list. These are cards that are generically good, and you could take regardless of what archetype you're in. You'll be pretty happy to play them. They're roughly in order, but like Borrowed Time I think is just one of the best. Neurosurge is kind of like Borrowed Time. I don't know where I got this card text. This adds 3 energy by default, but you can only do it once. But it's 3 energy, draw 2 cards. So this card, just put it in your deck. It's a great boost. You do start dooming yourself, but who cares? If you can kill the enemies before you take damage, it doesn't matter. I don't know how to pronounce this, but this is just a good... This is another one of those good ethereal cards that gains energy, draws cards. A great one. Undeath is awesome. 0 mana gains 7 block, and then you can get extra copies of it. Is good. Transfigure lets you set up some really cool infinite combos because you add replay to another card. So a great example is putting it on Borrowed Time. It turns it into 1 mana add 4. And then if you can loop through your deck, put it on again, it becomes 2 mana add 6. You could just start scaling very quickly that way. But there's a lot of goofy cards you can put this on. Like if you put on an X spell, it goes crazy. So put it on Dirge. Summon X like 15 times. Yeah, go nuts with Transfigured. But you need a deck that has like extra energy and card draw sitting around to set this up. But Transfigure on its own can just be scaling. You don't need to have like an archetype. Just like Transfigure on it like a Severance. Then it becomes 3 mana. Hit them, get a bunch of soul. It's awesome. We talked about Grave Blast. Maybe this card should be higher. It's just so good because you can take it early. It's a common. It's the only common on this list. And it's just very good. High Five, technically part of the Osty Archetype, but it's just good AoE. 2 mana, 11 damage, and 2 vulnerable to everything. If you're trying to get aggressive, this card's great. And it pairs kind of well with Bone Shards too. If Osty is alive, he deals 9 damage. The weird thing about this card is you don't really want to play it in an Osty Archetype because it kills Osty, so if you built up all of this health on Osty, he dies. So you really only want to be playing this card if you're not in an Osty Archetype. And then it's just 1 mana, 9 damage to everything, gain 9 block, which is a really good rate. These are some of the like early game acceptable cards that I'm generally happy to have at least 1 copy of most of them in my deck. We talked about most of these. Delay is just fine. 11 block for 2 mana is not a good rate, but you get 1 energy next turn, so it's really good for setting up some expensive cards. I'm not happy to take it, but I'm not mad to take it either. Same with Wisp, like if you just need a little bit of extra energy to play something, you can jam that. And then these are good because they're ethereal. Yeah, and Fetch is good. It's just 3 damage, draw a card. It's free, but then you can get Osty synergies, which is good. And these are the cards I think are like pretty much just avoid them. Unless I don't understand, this card I don't really see much. Like, you have to spend a card that costs 2 or more energy just to get 3 block. It feels really undertuned. So maybe in a future update, this will give you like 10 block. Then it could be maybe okay, but right now there's not that much that like makes it worth playing this to get... Because how many cards can you play that cost 2 or more? Like 1. So you get 3 block sometimes. It's not very good. And then Countdown, we did the math. It's like 16 turns to kill slower than 1 poison card. And then this card, I have not played it. I don't know. I have no idea. This could be awesome. It could be bad. I think the idea is you fill your hand with souls, and then you can exhaust it to get intangible. It is very easy to fill your hand with cards with Eidolon. I would kind of think of this like take an extra turn. If you can use it to exhaust all of the bad cards from your deck, like it is very common when you're playing this character to have a bunch of souls and then like strikes and defend. So if you have this and you play all of your souls and your hand is like strike, defend, strike, strike, and you can exhaust most of those to get 1 intangible, it's okay. It's like you get an extra turn. I think if the main benefit is getting the cards out of your deck, I think this card's pretty good. I don't know how much I care about the 1 intangible because you can't even copy this. I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate this card. It seems cool. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. And with that, that is a brief overview of the character. If you want to see more of these, I'm working on one for the Regent, and I'll link that in the description. I have a ton of videos of the gameplay of this character too, so go check those out if you're interested. And if you like this, consider subscribing.